Hello and welcome. I am Thomas Porteous, and today we will dive into a discussion on the recent events from Gaza and Israel. A fragile ceasefire remains in place after the exchange of prisoners and hostages. In Washington, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu begins critical talks regarding the second phase of the Gaza truce, aimed at extending the temporary peace and addressing ongoing concerns. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes have resumed in the West Bank, particularly targeting the occupied city of Jenin. These strikes come just days after the ceasefire was brokered. On the other hand, foreign ministers from 5 Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, have issued a joint statement strongly rejecting the forced displacement of Palestinians from their land. The statement released on Saturday presented a unified stance against US President Donald Trump's call for Egypt and Jordan to accept Palestinian refugees from Gaza. We will discuss more into this. We are joined by a panel of guests today. We are joined by Ambassador Suresh Ghul, former diplomat from New Delhi, Lev Aran, former coordinator of Israel-India Parliamentary Friendship League in Israel, today with us. We are also joined by Raymond Vickery, former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, live from Washington, and Professor Rohan Gunaratne, Middle East Affairs expert live from Singapore. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. I wanted to come to you, Professor Rohan Gunaratne. I was wondering, how is Netanyahu's preparing his visit to Washington at the moment? How's that being perceived in the Middle East, do you think?
It is very clear that the very first head of state, head of government to be invited to the White House is Prime Minister Netanyahu. This has raised many questions in the Middle East. And it has also demonstrated that terrorism is not welcome in the Middle East, because President Trump, the United States, will fully back Israel. They will not tolerate any terrorist attacks by either the Lebanese Hezbollah, or by Hamas, or by Ansarullah in Yemen, any of these groups. So it has in many ways shocked and surprised to what extent Israel is now being supported by the United States. Of course, Trump, in his letter of invitation, has clearly stated that Netanyahu is the first head of state to visit Trump during his second term of presidency, and that he will work with Netanyahu to mitigate the threat of terrorism and also to deal with common enemies, clear reference to Iran.
Raymond Vickery, I wanted to come to you on this next one. Given Trump's hawkish foreign policy, we've seen that in his first term, and I mean we've seen that in the first 10-some days that he's been in charge. How do you think he will approach this moving forward to a complete ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, as that is what the second phase states?
Well, thanks very much for having me. Yes, it's a very important meeting, as has been said. The first foreign leader will be from Israel, and this will be part of Trump's continuing hostility toward any interference with Israel and what he calls finishing the job. The signs are not good in terms of peace in the second stage. Netanyahu has talked about redrawing the map of the Middle East, and he says with Trump's help they'll even further withdraw it. As you saw, the statements from Trump include cleaning out Gaza and moving people, really a type of ethnic cleansing. So this is a very important but fragile time. One hopes that there may be some moves toward peace, and hopefully other great democracies like India will encourage that movement, particularly since there is so much focus on what the next steps will be with Iran. As you recall from Trump 1.0, his first term, there was great hostility toward Iran and tearing up the peace, the agreement which had been drawn up previously to provide for some check on Iran's nuclear weapons. Now, what will happen is anybody's guess. Both Netanyahu and Trump seem to be focused on Iran. Does that mean that you'll bomb the nuclear facilities and further extend war and hostility as opposed to building peace? So this is a crucial time, and it's not a time for India or any other democracy to draw back from the Middle East and trying to build some sort of phase two, which will actually promote peace rather than just extend the war. So this is a very important time. I would say that the envoy that Trump has chosen, Steve Witkoff, has shown that he wants to help build that peace. Hopefully he can be a moderating force on Trump and some of his more outlandish statements in regard to Israel and what happens in the Middle East.
Lev, Iran, I wanted to come on to you next. How do you think Netanyahu and Trump are going to get on? Obviously, Trump has recently spoken out against Netanyahu prior to him being in office. How do you think that these two are going to speak to each other in regards to moving on to this second phase of the deal? Are they both going to move forward towards peace in a parallel fashion, or are they going to go their own separate ways when it comes to discussing this, do you think?
We cannot sugarcoat the simple truth. Trump knows that Netanyahu, also Hamas, but also Netanyahu, walked over each and every red line that Biden wrote, and also Trump in his first tenure. So I think that the first thing that Trump will tell Netanyahu, I have red lines, don't walk over it. And I am a peacemaker and I'm a unifier. And when I said it, I mean it. It means that I believe that Trump is very serious with the ceasefire. He's very serious with the task of bringing back all the hostages from Gaza. And he has a big plan. His big plan is the normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel and having IMEC. And in this sense, a war between Hamas and Israel has no point from his, from his point of view. So while it is great news that Netanyahu is the first leader to come to Washington, when they have the intimate talk, I think that Netanyahu will hear some things that will not be very pleasant to his ears.
Thank you. Ambassador Goel, how do you think the impact of this very, very important meeting, how do you think that will implement things internationally? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this last question is the most important question that we need to understand and deal with if we want to know how to deal with the Middle East. Several points, but let me prioritize them. Number one, the very fact that Netanyahu is the first visitor to the USA is a clear indication that the USA and Trump particularly is now willing to see a redrawal of the map in the Middle East. I'm saying the redrawal of the map of the Middle East And in that new map of the Middle East, there will be no Palestine, number one. Number two, the issue here is not Iran or Hamas. Of course, they have become implicated, basically because Iran has taken advantage of the situation in the Middle East. But the issue here is the future of Palestine. In all the process and everything, I think what has been completely forgotten is that this is a land where the Palestinians were living, and now the Palestinians have no land. When Trump offered or asked that Egypt and Jordan should take the people from Gaza, it was a clear indication, clear support to the proposal, earlier proposal, where it was understood that the Gaza is not the Palestinian land anymore. And the reason the Palestinians, the reason that most of the Middle Eastern countries have opposed the plan is simply because that would basically mean leaving Gaza to Israel. Lastly, the fact is that the whole plan of exchange of prisoners, the hostages, is clear, really. I mean, I think it's a charade being played. I have sympathies for the hostages. And I really don't think, and I really condemn the way the action started when hostages were taken. It was totally criminal. It was I really don't know what to say. But the fact is that the exchange of prisoners for the hostages, you release 200 prisoners today, and then you take back 500 prisoners again the next day from Jenin, from Gaza, from different places, and they're back. There are new prisoners in the place. So the game simply is, as far as I can see, that eventually there will be a redrawal of the map in the Middle East, where there will be no Middle East, and Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc., because of their own reasons, will be part of the agreement. I don't blame them. Simply, the geopolitics of the day is like this.
Ambassador Gul, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt you.
Yes.
I'll come back. I just wanted to move on to my next topic, which is the ongoing violence in the West Bank at the moment, particularly in the city of Jenin. I wanted to come to Lev Aran on this one first. I wanted to know what has prompted this recent military operation in the West Bank from Israel's perspective, this Iron Wall operation. What exactly is it?
It is quite simple. We have jihadistic forces in Jenin. The Palestinian Authority tried its best to win the battles against them. I can't say that they failed, because in some battles they won, in some battles they lost. And in a way, there is an understanding between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. Nobody will say it openly, okay? But there is an understanding between the Palestinian leadership and the Israeli leadership that the jihadist forces in Jenin are dangerous, not that much dangerous to Israel, much more dangerous to the Palestinian sovereignty over the territories that they do have. So right now we see the battles, and we see a lot of terrorists getting killed, and relatively we don't see much of a noise in the Arab world or in other cities in the West Bank.
Raymond Vickery, how does the US balance its support for Israel with concerns, if there are any under the Trump administration, about escalating violence in the West Bank and in Gaza in general?
Well, I think that, the one hope is Trump wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And hopefully he will move in that direction. But the signs are not good. The signs are that on the West Bank as well as Gaza, he and Bibi, Netanyahu, basically, I think, are on the same page. I was said earlier by one of your guests that Trump will impose red lines on Netanyahu in terms of having a one-state solution as opposed to a two-state solution. I don't see that. I don't see Trump trying to rein in and having a more peaceful solution. It seems to me that the emphasis is on getting the job done, as he has put it with Netanyahu. And you have to also take into account that the lobbyists for AIPAC, the domestic uh, entity, are very strong in the United States, and Trump has played to those who are supporting the most conservative solution in regard to Israel and West Bank and Gaza. So I think that this is a crucial time. There is the hope that Trump will move toward trying to make a peaceful settlement, but I don't see that because I don't think there is any phase two to the view of Trump and Netanyahu, except the aggrandizement of both of those actors. So I think it's a difficult time. As I say, there are people like Steve Witkoff, who is the envoy, who act as a constraint on Trump. But Trump doesn't have any view in mind except might is right, and that we're going to be able to support Israel in reaching a solution which is one which is favorable to Netanyahu.
Professor Gunaratne, I want to know, in your opinion, what are the broader implications of this operation for regional security and stability, and what do you think about the state of the ceasefire right now?
The ceasefire will end. It's a question of time, because already the threat has moved from Gaza to the West Bank. In West Bank, in the city of Jenin, the Jenin Brigade, which is a jihadist brigade, is now.
Apology. I would like to ask Ambassador Gul the same question. Apologies, we seem to have lost Professor Gunaratne there. Ambassador Gul, I was wondering, what are the broader implications of this operation for regional security and stability, and what are your thoughts on the state of how this ceasefire is going amid this escalating violence, not in Gaza, but in the West Bank?
I think essentially what is happening is that eventually there has to be a readjustment of the geopolitical factors in the region. And in that sense, what is happening in the West Bank is really a kind of an insurance, a political insurance against what happens to the Palestinians. And I had mentioned earlier about arresting more people. They mostly come from the West Bank, and they are then exchanged for the hostages. So I think it's all basically happening as a kind of a long game plan, where eventually there will be, as somebody mentioned, one state solution, where Israel is there and Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Qatar, etc. They will agree to it because they have no option but to agree to it. Simply, the only thing that will be left is Israel, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Qatar. Palestinian will not be there as a part of the new map at all. So we have to basically understand that in that situation, where will the other forces be? Iran, Lebanon, Syria, who have survived so far essentially as a kind of a Palestinian supporters in the whole game. So I think it's an interesting time. We have to wait and watch how it happens in future.
Lev Iran, what is your thoughts on this, the current state of the ceasefire right now? Do you think violence is going to escalate in the West Bank? What have you been hearing about operations going on there and Israeli retaliation?
In Israel, most people do not think that the operations in the West Bank right now have such a huge importance because they are very much localized on Jenin. Jenin officially should be part of the Palestinian Authority. And also Abu Mazen wants Jenin to be part of his sovereignty. This is what he won, not him. This is what Yasser Arafat won in the Oslo Accords. And since the Palestinian Authority was not able to win the battles against the jihadist forces in Jenin, I believe that the elite in the West Bank are quite happy that Israel is doing the work for them. I don't think that the verdict of the battles in Jenin will have to do anything with the big picture that the ex-ambassador spoke about, if we will have a one-state solution or a two-state solution. If Trump wants, there will be a two-state solution because Bibi cannot win Trump. And if Trump agrees with Bibi, there will be a one-state solution. This is the clout now of Trump in the US.
Raymond Vickery, I wanted to move on to the next topic now about the five Arab nations foreign ministers all meeting together. They obviously rejected this consensus from Trump that all these Palestinian refugees should be moved out into Jordan and Egypt. What do you think about this response from these foreign ministers?
Well, I think that the response shows that what Trump has said and what the right wing in Israel has said about clearing out Gaza, the ethnic cleansing, if you will, in order to be able to do away with that as any kind of Palestinian entity. This shows that there is a unified objection and rejection of this approach. The problem is when Trump makes these remarks, he doesn't really have in mind what is going to happen on a stage two and how you get there. The question is what you do next in Gaza. The idea that somehow you're just going to be able to clear it all out and it's a reconstruction site and it becomes part of Israel. I mean, that isn't going to work in the Middle East. So I think that that this shows the five nations coming together. That approach is a non-starter in terms of building a phase two, which can promote some sort of permanent peace, which is what we're looking for. You know, today is Groundhog Day in the United States of America, and anybody who has ever seen the movie about that knows that it's a recurring again and again of the same old situation. And what is required, of course, is some vision here, which does not seem to be present, to be able to move to a phase two, which does something rather than just redraw the map.
Ambassador Gould, obviously Trump has used this language like clean out the Gaza Strip, which is essentially has indicated of removing people from their ancestral home. How do you think that Trump's language and these kind of claims and relations with Israel will affect his relationship with Arab nations going forward?
I think in this particular case, by asking Egypt and Jordan to take the people from Gaza, he has used rather old language. I remember I have been in Egypt for 4 years, and I've seen the politics playing out there regarding the Palestinians, and it is not very pleasant, I can tell you that. And Jordan, in a similar manner, even though it's not so visible, but the fact is that neither Egypt nor Jordan are going to welcome the Palestinians to make their home in those countries for two simple reasons. One, simply because by letting the people from Gaza come into those countries, is really accepting that Gaza can be the territory under Israeli control. And number two, because, and let me say the bad word here, Palestinians are not welcome in Egypt or in Jordan. Jordan already has more than 1 million Palestinians, Gazans living there. They can't take any more. Egyptians consider the people from Palestine, Gaza, as the source of a lot of, as Trump would put, bad things to happen in those countries. And therefore, we have come to a difficult situation. I don't think that is going to work. However, if Israel doesn't want Palestinians living in Gaza, they will be somewhere, wherever it is. So we need to wait and see how situation change. But it is really, really a kind of a thing which is highly disruptive.
Professor Rohan Gunaratne, we were talking about the Arab foreign minister's reaction to Trump's statement about cleaning out Gaza. What are your thoughts on this? And how do you think that this whole situation is going to turn out with the both of them?
The foreign ministers do not want to take the Gazans to their own countries, especially the Jordanian and the Egyptian ministers have spoken. The heads of government, heads of state have spoken. But at the same time, Israel wants to dismantle the Hamas governing and the military infrastructure. So at this point, what we are seeing is there has to be new thinking on how to resolve this issue. But what is clear is, for Israel, strategic calculus, they do not want Hamas build up next to their state. So I believe that there will come a point where there will be sufficient pressure to dismantle Hamas in Gaza. That is why I personally believe that the Palestinians who are coming back to northern Gaza, they will have no peace in the short term until and unless Hamas is removed from Gaza.
Thank you for joining us. That is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more international news updates from across the world.